right, let's do this. All right, let me get everything marked here. This is the horn relay. This is the fan relay. Okay, this is cruise control, which I don't need. This is the DRAC module for the transmission.
Wally.
All right.
Wally.
What the heck is that? What? Who is that?
It's me. The doubter.
Well, what the heck do you want? Go away. I'm busy.
Why are you messing with that old harness? You know you can't fix that. You know you don't know how.
What are you talking about? Yes, I do. I can fix this. I don't know what you're talking about. Go away.
But don't you want a brand new shiny harness? Come on, you know you want to buy a new one. You don't want to mess with that old junk. You don't know how to fix that.
I know how to do this.
No, you don't. Just buy a new one.
I can fix this. I know how to do it. Okay, that's for... This is all the turn signals.
Wally.
What? What now?
It's me, your friendly voice.
Oh, geez. What do you want? You trying to discourage me too?
No, you can fix that harness. You know how to do it.
I know I can make it work, but Mr. Negative doesn't want me to make it work.
Don't listen to him. You can do this.
You can't do it. Listen to me. Buy a new harness.
Goodness. All right, this is getting ridiculous. I don't know. Maybe I should just buy a new one. Maybe he's right. The voice is in my head. I'm back. I haven't gotten anything done on the truck. I took the last weekend off. I didn't touch this dang thing. It's actually a really nice weekend to take off. We had some rain, so I had a perfect opportunity to just kind of relax, spend some time with the wife. But now, it's time to rip the Band-Aid off. So I did a lot of homework during my weekend off, basically just studying this motorhome harness and really trying to figure everything out, trying to remember where everything went and what I need to do to try to get this thing to work. As far as the length of the harness, I think it's gonna work out okay, just barely, but I think we can make it work. I was a little bit worried about having to eliminate a lot of components from this harness, but it doesn't look like I'm really gonna have to eliminate very much, if anything at all, really. Everything on the computer is gonna stay. There's really nothing here that needs to come out. Originally, I thought this thing had daytime running lamps. I was gonna eliminate all that harness and stuff, but it does not have that. It wasn't equipped with that. So basically, this harness is pretty simple, and I think we can repurpose this thing and make it work and good enough. All right, so I'll 100% admit when it comes to wiring, I like to let it get in my head and stew and brew, and it basically just messes with me mentally. I overthink it too much, but once I start diving into something, I usually figure it out, and it's usually not that big a deal. I've really been studying the schematics. I found a really good printout of a wiring diagram for these motorhome chassis specifically, and I went through everything, and I've just been studying that thing and studying it and just comparing everything on the harness, and I've got everything pretty well figured out as far as what's going where and the power distribution and how it all flows through the fuse block and all that, just trying to wrap my head around it and understand it. At this point, I feel pretty darn comfortable with trying to make this work. Again, I don't have to cut too much out of it. This is the harness that goes inside the truck. Obviously, we have the main fuse block here, and I will just reuse all of this stuff. This has just the right amount of circuits for what I need. And basically, I've just been trying to figure out kind of how the motorhome companies do this stuff, because when it leaves the factory at GM, they leave all these provisions open up here for the motorhome company to tap into for different accessories. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, is just trying to figure that stuff out. Otherwise, all basic stuff really. You got the headlight switch and the dimmer switch here. This I'll be able to adapt into just a normal dash mounted headlight switch. These are the two switches that go at the brake pedal for the brake lights, and then the other one's for the torque converter for the transmission. This harness goes into the back of the gauge cluster, and I've already figured out where all of these wires go. This will be pretty easy to integrate into some sort of aftermarket electronic gauge, is what I'm thinking. This is just a bulkhead connector, and then as far as the rest of the harness is concerned, I'm gonna have to adapt. This is the column-mounted ignition switch. I'll be able to basically put all of these wires onto a normal dash-mounted ignition switch, and then just all the different relays. You got the fan relays, you got the horn relays. Then as far as the turn signals go, I got one of these. I found this at the swap meet. This is one of those signal stats off of like a semi trucks or whatever. So I'm going to use this in the truck to kind of give it that old school look. So I'll be able to adapt that wiring into the original turn signal switch wiring. ECM, whatever, no big deal. All that's gonna stay the same. The other end of the bulkhead. Then this is the harness for the front headlights, all the marker lights, pretty simple. And then just working our way back, I mean, all this stuff is gonna stay the same. Nothing back here is gonna change. This is all engine related and transmission related and power distribution. So once I took the time to sit down, study the wiring harness, look this thing over really carefully, I started to wrap my head around all of it and go, okay, I think I can do this. This shouldn't be that big a deal. Now this harness works. I was gonna replace this harness. I was gonna buy a whole new engine harness for 500 bucks. Then I was gonna buy another chassis harness for another couple $100. I already had all that stuff in the cart, ready to buy it. And then I thought, you know what? Just use this stuff. Now in the last video, I talked about just converting this thing to a carburetor and being done with it. Well, in case I can't figure out the wiring and all that fails, I have a backup. At the swap meet, I found an intake, a carburetor, and a distributor for that big block. So if all else fails, I'll throw a carburetor on it. Now, as you guys know, I love carburetors. I have no issues with them at all. One of my biggest concerns with having a carburetor on this truck in particular was the engine placement. Now, if you haven't seen this truck before, basically what I did was I put the big block underneath the cab and I built the doghouse over this, and then the seat goes up and over the doghouse, right? So gaining access to this thing is gonna be a little bit challenging. So if I gotta tune a carburetor, I gotta make tweaks on it, adjustments or whatever, it's gonna be a little bit of a headache to get to that thing. So that made me rethink the carburetor idea for this. All right, so that brings me back to leaving the fuel injection on this engine. This fuel injection works. We started this thing up, the Motorhome chassis, when I drove it around the block in the previous video. The injectors are probably gonna need to be replaced because this thing had some pretty bad old gas in it, and they were kind of sticking a little bit. But aside from that, everything worked just fine. I might as well just use it, because then if I don't have to mess with trying to take the doghouse off of this thing to make adjustments, carburetor-wise, anything like that, I think it's just gonna be a heck of a lot easier to deal with it. It'll start right up every time. I won't have to mess with it. Yeah, it's old, antiquated fuel injection, but it'll work for this thing just fine. It's gonna be a little challenging mounting a lot of this stuff underneath the dash. There's not a lot of room underneath those trucks. Unfortunately, a lot of it's gonna be pretty visible as well. So the tricky part is gonna be trying to do this to keep it really, really clean because I want it to look good. I'm on a tight budget with this truck, trying to get this thing finished. And I still have so much more that I need to buy for this truck. So using the old Motorhome harness is definitely gonna save me a bunch of money. And that was the whole point of this project, was just trying to reuse as much of that Motorhome stuff as I possibly could. So buying a new harness and everything for this thing, I feel like I'm cheating. Okay, before I get into the main, I need to figure out this harness here. There's a bulkhead here that I was thinking about eliminating. I don't know if I need it. This thing is just like ridiculously extra long. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna lay this out exactly as well. And then try to figure out how I'm gonna pass all of these wires through the firewall as well. That's another headache. I think I can make that work right there. I got a lot to consider as well. I've got the wiper motor up there. I've got the cowl vent. So I could put the bulkhead in the middle. Might look goofy, but it is what it is. Okay guys, not much progress. So all of this wiring needs to go inside the truck. All of this wiring right here needs to go inside the truck as well. And then this all goes outside. Now right here is where in the motorhome it passed through the firewall, and I took off the glued section that was on here. I'll show a picture of it, what it looked like. And then this bulkhead here, they just had mounted on the inside. They didn't even use it for like going through a firewall. It was just like underneath the dash. I was looking at maybe removing this thing completely because I don't need it, because all this needs to go through the firewall, but then all of this needs to go inside the firewall, so that does me no good. So I'm just trying to figure out the cleanest way that I can do this. I thought about just, you know, cutting some of this and splicing it back together again, getting rid of that, or shortening it anyway. I don't know. There's no real clean way to do it, unfortunately. It's just a little bit of a funky setup. I'm basically just duplicating what they did on the motorhome as best I can anyway. Again, not the cleanest way, but it's a way that's gonna work. All right, guys, I've been staring at this thing trying to figure out a clean way to do this for too long. I'm just gonna go for it, basically. Remember, this is a budget build, and we're just gonna make it work. You know, this is like the third hole saw that I've purchased. This is a Milwaukee too, that it just ripped the teeth right off of it and destroyed it. So I don't know what the deal is with hole saws right now. All right, guys, here goes nothing. Now that I have completely butchered that hole, I'm gonna try to feed all this stuff in there. I deburred all this. This is just for mock-up right now. Oh, wait a minute. I can't do that yet. Okay, all of this has to go in first. So, ignition switch, relays. Computer. Main plug here. Hopefully this will go in there. Yes, okay. All right, so this is where it's gonna come through the firewall right here. Okay, I just had a little rubber seal I just put around that hole just to protect the harness for now. But let's see, I know this is where it's gonna go through at this tape mark, so I'm gonna leave that right there. And now the rest of this stuff can all be fed underneath the truck. So this is gonna be fun. Transmission line back there first. And I'm trying to be really careful with it here. I already stepped on the stupid injector, freaking one of the injector plugs. Let's see, this is the front light harness, so this stays here. This one's not used, so it doesn't matter. Come on. The joys of using old junk. Oh man, I hope you guys are getting a good laugh out of this. Okay, this goes to the transmission, so this can go out the back. This goes down to the starter. Once I kind of get everything going in the right direction, it should be okay. Fuel pump relay, this can go over here somewhere. I'm hoping this is all going to be long enough. Basically taking a chance. I think it went backwards like this, because the alternator's right there, so that went right there. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm still at it. So, I ran the wiring harness back to the transmission, got all that hooked up, ran it up over the way it was originally. Originally, it went on that side of the AC compressor, and in this case, I needed to run it by the water neck here, and I realized, well, that's kind of going in between the air conditioning belt. And I really didn't like that. In case I throw that belt, it's going to grab that harness. I mean, yeah, I could make some kind of, you know, bracket or whatever to protect it, but I think I've got enough room. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift the harness over to the passenger side, run it down the passenger side of the engine, and then down the spine of the transmission, if you will, to the plugs down there. I think this will work. So I'm messing with this right now, just trying to lay it all out now. I'm just trying to think of all the serviceability and, you know, ease of maintenance and tracking wires down if there's a problem. So I'm just really trying to put a lot of thought into that as far as how I'm running this harness. And of course, I'm trying to make it look as cleanly as I can as well. right, guys, making some progress here. All right, back on the motor here on the passenger side. I've got it tied up, just temporarily zip tied to the frame there. And then the main harness will come down along the back of the transmission. Now on top of the engine, injectors are plugged in. And then again, here's all the rest of the sensors. This junction block here for all the battery cables that feeds the power to everything. I was gonna mount this down below underneath on the rail, but it actually fit right up underneath the alternator bracket up through here perfectly. And everything will be out of the way of the belts now. We have no clearance issues whatsoever. All the sensors up here in the front are hooked up. And then all these wires here I need to extend. And I did mount the fuse block right here. I just put it on this side. And then that trunk will go up over the top, up over the brakes there. So I don't know, it seems like it's working out. Everything's fitting and the length is just right. There's gonna be a little bit of excess, you know, kind of tucked up underneath the dash and whatnot. Stuff is a little bit longer than it needs to be, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna worry about it. All right, guys, so a quick day 2 summary for you. You're not gonna see much, unfortunately, but I got a really late start this morning. I ended up going down to a local hot rod shop, Vintage Parts, Arizona. So I went down there and got an ignition switch with the plug for it here. This is a little more of a modern, kind of modern anyway, compared to the 54 anyway. So I got one of these. I'm gonna wire in, figure that out. And then I got more of a modern headlight switch here with the plug in the back. And then I got the plug for that. I'll have to wire that up. I got a new pull knob just in case my original one does not fit. And then this is just the dash bezel piece that screws into the headlight thing. And then once I came home, I just basically put my head down and started wiring this thing, or at least getting everything tidied up. I wasn't gonna film any. It was just, gosh, this stuff is just time consuming, as you guys know. But let me show you what we did. I got some of this mesh wire loom. I've never used this stuff before, and I figured I'd give it a shot. I don't know, it's all right. I think I kind of like the traditional plastic stuff better. So I ran this stuff up, and I just put a couple clamps here. Now it's going down underneath the cab. All right, and that harness is running down underneath the frame here. And then I just ran the trunk right down the frame mount, or the cab mount. This is a fuel pump relay. I'll mount this thing somewhere up in here. And then I just put a couple clamps, one there, one there. I split everything off right here. And all the wiring for the air conditioner and the temperature sender now is over here. And then this goes down to the oil pressure, fuel pump switch. Everything pretty much is kind of exactly the way it was originally, except it's on the other side. And this is the harness for the fuel pump and then the rear taillights. And then I only had the wire mesh and the big stuff. I thought I ordered wire mesh for the smaller stuff here, but they sent me the traditional plastic loom, split loom, but that was okay. I don't care. None of this stuff you'll really see anyway because the flatbed will cover it. But now this trunk for the transmission just runs right over the top and everything's all plugged in, good to go. So for the most part, not too bad. It went pretty well, just very tedious and time consuming. I'm kind of taking a chance, you know, on looming this stuff and buttoning it all up and making it permanent, you know. I mean, it worked before and I really haven't done anything to it, so it should be fine, hopefully. I guess we'll find out. Okay, I think for the most part, the engine and transmission stuff is complete, and then I can work on the real nightmare. So this is the next step. I'm gonna get going on this and try to get this tidied up and figured out. I don't know, we're getting there. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Been messing around here this morning for a little bit, just trying to figure some of this out. So I kind of got this all separated out, the main harness, and then just everything that doesn't need to be together. And I went ahead and mounted the PCM up there. I still had the original plastic mounting case for it. As far as like everything else, the wiper motors and everything, the hole for the wiper motor arm is right here, so it's pretty far away from the firewall. And then the arm's gonna be, you know, back and forth here. So I've got plenty of room. All this wiring is gonna be tucked up against the firewall, so we should be good. Now, there's a couple wires on the fuse block here that I forgot about that I need to deal with. Yeah, some of this stuff is a little confusing. The way the motorhome companies tap into everything and butcher these things is pretty bad. This is the wiper motor delay box. So if I wanted to wire this in somehow and hook it up to a switch, I could. But I don't know, I probably won't mess with it at all. And then the motorhome companies just tie into this stuff and, you know, they go from, I think they just willy-nilly pick colors, you know. You got a purple going to a red and they got all this stuff tied together. And so I'm just trying to figure out their butchery, basically. Okay, now, let's see. Some of this I don't have to mess with here. Trying not to cut any wire. So I gotta figure out what this is. Okay, this is just all grounded. But why did they put a white wire to there? See, some of this stuff makes no sense, but this is a ground wire. So this all, because there's a splice right here. Okay guys, a little progress here. Get a light in here so you can see. I've got everything run as good as I can get it. Honestly, that's about, I'd like it to be a little better, but it's just not gonna happen. Unfortunately, that motorhome harness has a little bit of a memory, and I'm not gonna mess with that thing too much to try to change its mind. All right, so what I did is on top of the ECM where it bolts into this plastic piece, there's a couple bolts up there. So I just bent up a piece of metal here, and then I mounted up the relays and then the hazard solenoid to that. And then this is the module for the transmission. This plastic housing is so brittle, the screws fell apart. I'm gonna get some double sticky. I got some 3M tape. I'm just gonna put some 3M tape on it and stick it to that box. And then as far as the rest of the harness is concerned, the bulkhead and everything's hooked up, and then I just got everything wrapped as good as I can get it anyway. Unfortunately, this is all okay through here, you know, into the PCM, it's all good. And then the only thing I didn't like was this trunk right here, because I had to kind of fold it back the other direction to go this way, because all this stuff would have normally went that way. But I didn't want to mount anything over there. There's just not a lot of room over there, because I've got the vent and the wiper motor and everything else. This just made more sense to put it here, but it worked out okay. It's going to be fine. And then as far as the rest of the wiring goes, this is going to go to the ignition switch, and then this is for the turn signals, and then this is for the dimmer switch, and then this is the plug for the backup light. So I'll have to figure that out as far as how to incorporate that into my custom shifter. I'll see what I can come up with. But otherwise, this stuff will just kind of run, you know, right across just like that, and it should be fine. And that turn signal switch, I'll extend that and kind of go up over the other side and then over towards the column. So that should work out pretty good. So that turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that overall. It's actually the next day after work here. I'm just finishing up a couple little things, but I think it's going to look pretty, it looks pretty good. It looks decent. And then as far as like the air conditioner, I have no idea. I'm kind of taking a chance. I don't know what kind of air conditioner I'm going to put in this thing. I know there's a whole bunch of pretty compact ones you can get on eBay and whatnot that guys really like. I'll probably just go with something like that. I don't need much in this thing. It's just going to be a tiny little cab, you know. So, but it is Arizona and it is hot, so we'll see. All right, so for the grommet through the firewall here, I bought one of these two-piece deals, but I don't know, I wasn't real happy with it. And it ended up being a little bit small. And then cutting this thing to make it bigger was just turning into a headache, so I just decided to make my own. So what I did was I just made a plate here, and then I cut a slit in it, and then just opened it up and put it around the harness. And then I have actually a leftover motorhome grommet that was already split, so I was like, okay, perfect. This is actually what went around this originally anyway. So I'll just repurpose it for this and put it on here and be done with it. It just keeps it really simple too. And then what I'll do is I'll put some kind of insulation, you know, just some weather stripping or something around this as I bolt it on. But I'll do that later because I don't know if this is all going to have to come apart or not. So this should work out. Yeah, that works out good. Okay. I'll just put that slit down towards the bottom. And then we'll push this up against the firewall, and then I can bolt this thing up. All right, that looks pretty good. Looks good enough. Not bad. I do love that riv nut tool though. It sure does make things nice. Now this thing's kind of sticking out a little bit further because I got everything set inside. So I'll just loosen up the clamp and then I'll kind of pull that harness down a little bit and get it closer to the firewall. All right, then the driver's side over here, obviously the fuse block is mounted and I got it all loomed up and wrapped up there, and then I'll be able to terminate all this wiring. This is the wiring for the headlights. This is all gonna go right here, so this will be shortened up quite a bit. And then, yeah, we're pretty good. So for the most part, I think the hard part's over with as far as getting that harness in there and getting it routed and mounted. So let's just pray that there's no issues with this thing when I fire it up and there's no problems with that harness. All right, so just this week off camera, I'm gonna mess with like the rest of it, the ignition switch and all that stuff. I think we'll close out the video here, call that good. And next week, I'm just probably gonna finish up some of this wiring and get the tanks out. Maybe paint the tanks too while I got them out, I might as well. I'll get that, I'll figure all that out later. So either, well, probably not next video, maybe a couple videos. We're a few videos away from firing it up. Because I just want to get this other stuff done, like the tanks, and get the exhaust back on, get all that stuff out of the way, and then we can fire the thing up. Anyway, all right, cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you watching. Turn this crap off, get outside, go work on your junk. I can't be the only one out here in the heat having fun. Speaking of heat, man, it's back. So we're supposed to be, I saw 113 coming up here in the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. But anyway, ugh. Good times. Summer in Phoenix is back. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Get out there and work on your stuff.